Don't blink. Every second you watch, every word you type, they're closer. Like or comment. It's your only defense. Keep watching. Don't look away.
I should have known something was wrong the moment I saw the job listing. Night security guard needed, no prior experience, high pay, remote location. But I was desperate. Rent was due. My bank account was a joke. So when I saw Chernobyl exclusion zone as the address, I convinced myself it would be safe. After all, it's been decades since the disaster. The radiation levels are mostly contained, right? Right? The drive was long and silent. I passed through multiple checkpoints, each guarded by men who barely spoke a word. Finally, I arrived at the facility, a decaying Soviet-era complex half swallowed by the forest. It loomed against the darkening sky like a dying beast. The man in charge introduced himself only as Colonel Petrov. "Your duties are simple," he said. "You remain inside the security office. You monitor the cameras. You do not leave. You do not open any doors. If you see anything unusual, you report immediately. Do not attempt to handle it yourself." I asked, half joking. "What exactly might I see?" His cold eyes didn't blink. Unusual activity. The office was small and smelled of mildew. Rows of ancient monitors displayed grainy black and white footage from different parts of the facility. Most of the building was sealed off, especially the research wing, which had multiple heavy steel doors bolted shut. For the first 2 hours, nothing happened. I stared at the screens, half falling asleep. Just endless empty hallways, flickering lights, dust floating in the air. Occasionally, the Geiger counter would click softly, but nothing alarming. And then camera 7 glitched. Static rippled across the screen. Through the distortion, I saw something. A shadow. Tall, thin, almost skeletal. It moved awkwardly, like its limbs weren't bending the way they should. My stomach twisted. Was it a person? A trick of the light? I grabbed the radio. Security reporting. Possible movement in Sector C. No response. Just silence. And static. I watched the figure move down the corridor, stopping at one of the sealed doors. It stood there for several minutes, perfectly still, like it was listening or waiting. And then it turned, as if it noticed the camera, as if it noticed me. My hands went cold. The power flickered, the lights dimmed, and then the radios went completely dead. Suddenly, I heard footsteps outside my office. Slow, heavy, thump, thump, thump. I locked the door instantly. My heart pounded so loud I thought it might explode. The footsteps stopped, directly in front of my door. I could hear breathing. Deep, wet, ragged. And then, 3 soft knocks. Tap, tap, tap. My entire body froze. I whispered to myself, "This is not happening. This is not happening." The knocking stopped. For several minutes, there was nothing but my own panicked breathing. But then, the door handle started to turn, slowly, deliberately. It rattled softly, as though whatever was on the other side was toying with me. I held my breath, clutching the flashlight like a weapon, though I knew it would do nothing. Then the handle stopped moving. For what felt like an eternity, there was nothing. I thought maybe it was gone. But then, bang! Something slammed against the door with inhuman force. The entire frame shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. And then again.
Bang!
And again. Each impact was stronger than the last. The metal hinges groaned. I screamed into the dead radio, "Help! Someone help me!" And then, Everything went silent. The air felt thick. The only sound was my own pulse. The monitors flickered back to life. Camera 7 came online. On the screen, the thing was inside now, standing in the main hall. Its face, if you could call it that, was an elongated mass of pale flesh, where a mouth should be, a gaping vertical slit, like a second neck that stretched open and closed with wet, clicking sounds. It tilted its head in short, jerky movements, as if scanning the empty room. And then, slowly, it began walking toward my office. Thump, thump, thump. My mind raced. The office had only one entrance, no windows, nowhere to run. Then, another monitor lit up. The emergency tunnel. I had completely forgotten. There was an escape hatch through the maintenance shaft, but it was on the far end of the facility. I had to move. I slipped out as silently as I could. The hallway smelled of mold and rust. Every step felt like thunder in my ears. In the distance, I could still hear its wet breathing echoing through the corridors. The Geiger counter began to click faster. Radiation levels were rising, but that was the least of my concerns. As I reached the hatch, the air grew colder, and then a soft whisper. "Why are you leaving?" I spun around, but no one was there. The hatch was rusted shut. I pulled, kicked, slammed my shoulder against it. The Geiger counter screamed, and then I saw it. Crawling across the ceiling like a spider, its grotesque limbs bending backwards, head twisting unnaturally. It dropped down with a sickening wet thud behind me. I yanked the hatch open and dove into the shaft, slamming it shut just as its claws scraped across the metal door. In the pitch black, I crawled through the narrow tunnel for what felt like hours. Finally, I emerged into the woods, gasping for air, shaking uncontrollably. The facility stood behind me, silent once again. I never went back. But sometimes, at night, I still hear that wet, ragged breathing just outside my window.
You think this is just a story? It's not. It really happened. It all started with something small. One sound, one glance, and I was never alone again. Subscribe if you crave real horror, and like the video while you still can.
I never thought I'd say this about my own kid, but something about him felt wrong. He was born healthy, perfect by every measure, but from the very start, he never cried. Not a single tear, not a whimper, no screams. Doctors said it was rare but possible. Some babies just have different emotional responses. At first, I believed them. But as months passed, I noticed how his silence wasn't peaceful. It was empty. When he hurt himself, there was no reaction. No tears, no fuss, just blank eyes staring into nothing. People told me, he's just calm. He's special. But at night, when the house was quiet, I'd hear something else. A soft, low hum, almost like a chant, coming from his room. I'd check on him, but he'd be lying there, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling. One night, I woke up to find the humming louder, closer. And then the temperature dropped. The air turned thick, heavy. I reached out to touch his face, cold, like ice. And then something moved in the corner of the room, a shadow flickering. I wanted to scream, but my voice caught in my throat. That's when I saw it, the faintest tear rolling down his cheek. Except it wasn't a tear. It was blood. That blood tear haunted me like a shadow I couldn't shake. I rushed him to every specialist I could find. Pediatricians, neurologists, even a couple of doctors who dealt with rare disorders. Each time, the answer was the same. Nothing physically wrong. Maybe it's a rash or a rare skin condition, they said, trying to reassure me. But I knew the moment I saw that dark red tear roll down his cheek, this was something else. Something wrong. Something unnatural. Back at home, the house seemed to shift around me. The humming I'd heard before didn't just come from him anymore. It felt like it was everywhere, seeping from the walls, vibrating beneath the floorboards, twisting through the stale air. At night, the silence became unbearable. One evening, after putting him to bed, I sat alone in the dark living room, my eyes fixed on the hallway. The shadows stretched and danced in the dim light from the street lamp outside. Suddenly I felt it, a coldness creeping along my skin like icy fingers. The humming started again, low and rhythmic, like a chant in a language I couldn't understand. It grew louder, surrounding me. I stood up, heart pounding, and walked towards his room. The door was cracked open. Inside, I saw my son lying on his back, eyes wide open, staring blankly at the ceiling. His skin was pale, almost translucent, and his breath shallow. The room felt heavy, suffocating. I stepped inside, but as I did, I caught movement in the corner of my eye. A tall, thin figure stood there, its form blurred, almost fading into the shadows. Hollow eyes stared directly at me, and a smile stretched too wide, unnatural and cruel. Frozen, I could only watch as the figure slowly raised an arm and reached out toward my son. I wanted to scream, to run, but my body was locked in place. The humming turned into a whispering chorus, words slithering through the air like venom. Suddenly, my son's eyes shifted, a faint glow pulsing within the darkness of his irises. Then, without warning, the child's body convulsed violently, and a guttural sound escaped his lips. Not his voice, but something else. The shadow moved faster, engulfing him in darkness. Panicked, I lunged forward and grabbed my son. His body was cold, ice cold, as if life was draining from him. I stumbled backward, and the shadow dissolved into the walls, leaving behind a heavy silence. I held him tight, rocking him, tears streaming down my face. He looked at me, eyes clear again, but I knew the truth. This was only the beginning. Since that night, strange things have only gotten worse. Doors slam shut on their own, footsteps echo in empty rooms. At times, I hear the humming. Now, a dreadful lullaby that lulls me into restless nightmares. I've tried everything. Prayers, rituals, even moving to a new apartment. But no matter where we go, the darkness follows. Because the child who can't cry isn't just silent. He's a vessel. And whatever lives inside him, it's waiting. Waiting for the moment it can take over completely.
Hey, this video's a curse. Ignore it and it follows you. Like it and it protects you. Comment or suffer the silence.
I tried to ignore it. I told myself it was probably just some kid playing a prank, or maybe a homeless man hiding out. The figure never left. Night after night, it was there, silent, motionless. One evening, I decided to approach it. I wanted to confront whoever was standing there and ask them what they were doing. But as I got closer, the figure didn't look human. It was tall, unnaturally thin, and completely black, like a shadow made flesh. My heart pounded in my chest. I wanted to run, but something rooted me to the spot. Suddenly, the figure tilted its head, as if it was curious about me. Then, without a sound, it vanished into the darkness. I stood there alone, shivering, wondering if what I saw was real, or if I was losing my mind. And then I heard the laughter of my daughter, somewhere behind me. But when I turned around, she wasn't there. After that terrifying night, I stopped taking my daughter to the playground altogether. I told myself it was safer that way, safer to keep her away from whatever that shadowy thing was. But no matter how far I went, or how much I tried to forget, the figure never left my thoughts. It haunted my dreams, appearing over and over again. In my dreams, it stood silently at the edge of the playground, its dark form blending with the night. But each time, it seemed to grow more real, more menacing. Its eyes glowed faintly like burning embers, and it watched me with a cold, unblinking gaze that filled me with dread. One morning, I woke up to an unsettling sight. There were muddy footprints on the floor, small like a child's, leading from the window to the front door. I knew for a fact that no one had come in or out of the apartment. Footprints simply appeared overnight. I couldn't explain it. A chill ran down my spine as I stared at the marks. Someone, or something, had been inside. From that day, strange things began to happen around the apartment. Toys I'd left neatly on the floor were scattered across the room. Doors would creak open and slam shut on their own. Whispers echoed through the empty hallways, soft, unintelligible, but unmistakably there. And sometimes, late at night, a faint smell of something burnt would fill the air, lingering like a warning. I felt watched. Every shadow seemed to hide something. Every silence carried a threat. The dark figure was no longer just outside. It had found a way in. One evening, summoning what little courage I had left, I decided to face it head on. I went back to the playground under the cover of darkness, hoping to understand what I was dealing with. The air was thick and cold, the moon hidden behind clouds. The swings creaked in the wind, and the silence was heavy. As I stepped closer to the oak tree where the figure usually stood, I noticed something odd on the ground. It was a small black feather, unlike anything I had seen before, smooth, glossy, and unnaturally dark. I picked it up, my fingers trembling. The temperature dropped suddenly, and a heavy presence pressed down on my chest. I turned slowly, heart pounding, to see the shadow standing just a few feet away. It didn't move, but I could feel its gaze burning into me. Then, without speaking aloud, a voice echoed inside my mind, cold and hollow. "She's not safe." The words froze me in place. I wanted to scream, to run, but my body wouldn't obey. The shadow lingered for a moment longer, then vanished into the darkness. Terrified, I fled home, locking every door and window behind me. But safety was an illusion. That very night, I was jolted awake by the sound of my daughter crying. I rushed to her room, but when I got there, her crib was empty. My heart stopped. Frantic, I searched the apartment, calling her name. Then, through the living room window, I saw it. The dark figure, holding her tiny hand, standing just outside in the shadows. The streetlights flickered, casting eerie shapes, but the figure didn't move. It simply stared at me, as if daring me to come closer. I screamed for help, but the world seemed to fall silent around me. No one answered. That night, I realized the nightmare had only just begun.
They're listening right now to your breath, to your silence. Leave a comment, or they'll think you're hiding.
It was late, raining hard, and I was dead tired. I just wanted to get home as fast as possible, so I took a shortcut through that old forest road everyone warned me about. The kind of place that looks harmless in daylight but turns into a nightmare after dark. The fog was thick, so thick my headlights barely cut through it. I kept telling myself, just keep driving, it's nothing. But then something felt off. My GPS suddenly glitched. The blue line that should have led me home vanished, replaced by a twisting path I didn't recognize. My stomach dropped. Before I could react, my phone rang. An unknown number, no caller ID. I almost didn't pick up, but something pulled me in. A whisper came through, barely audible. "You're not alone." I spun around, heart racing. No one in the car, just the rain hammering the roof. The whisper came again, louder, more urgent. "You can't leave." Then everything went wrong. The car jolted hard, like something was trying to take control. The radio exploded with static, then cut off. My headlights flickered and died, leaving me swallowed by darkness. And then, a breath. Cold. Right at the back of my neck. I froze, not daring to move, not daring to look. I sat there, frozen behind the wheel, my heart hammering like a drum in my chest. The cold breath on my neck wasn't just a trick of the wind. It was real. I dared not turn around. Then, through the thick fog swirling around the car, I caught sight of a faint, ghostly glow in the rearview mirror. A pale figure slowly emerging from the shadows of the trees, almost translucent, like it didn't belong to this world. I swallowed hard and gripped the steering wheel tighter. My hands were slick with sweat. The figure didn't move closer, but its presence was heavy, suffocating, like the forest itself was watching, waiting. Panic surged through me, and I slammed the car into reverse, desperate to get away. But the road I thought I knew twisted and warped before my eyes, turning into a maze. The trees seemed to bend unnaturally, their branches clawing at the sky, blocking out the moonlight. It was like the forest was alive, reshaping itself to trap me in its sinister grip. My phone vibrated suddenly, the screen lighting up with an unknown number. I hesitated, but then the message popped up. "You took the shortcut. Now you belong to us." A cold shiver ran down my spine. Who were they? What did it mean, belong to us? I slammed my foot on the gas, tires spinning on the damp leaves. The car jolted forward, headlights cutting through the thick fog, but then flickering, like someone was messing with the power. Ahead, dozens of shadowy figures appeared, stepping silently from the trees. Their faces were hidden in darkness, but their eyes glowed a faint, eerie red. They didn't speak. They didn't move quickly, just slowly advanced, as if marking their territory. I screamed. The sound ripped from deep inside me as I tore through the forest road. My heart felt like it would burst out of my chest. The twisted forest finally began to thin, and moments later, I burst out onto the main road, where streetlights glowed warmly and cars passed by. Safety, or so I thought. But the terror clung to me like a second skin. My hands trembled uncontrollably. My mind raced. That night, sleep escaped me. Every creak in the house, every flicker of shadow seemed to reach out, trying to pull me back to that cursed forest. Hours later, my phone buzzed again. Another message from the same unknown number. "The shortcut will call you again. Next time, you might not be so lucky." I didn't reply. I didn't even want to read it twice. Since then, I've sworn to take only the main road, the long way around. But sometimes, when fog blankets the highway and the GPS glitches for just a moment, I swear I hear whispers, faint, urgent, calling me back to the forest. Sometimes, I wonder if the shortcut was never really about saving time, Maybe it was about being chosen. And if I ever take it again, I don't know if I'll be able to escape.
Don't blink. Every second you watch, every word you type, they're closer. Like or comment. It's your only defense. Keep watching. Don't look away.
I've been testing games for a few years now. It's not as fun as it sounds. Most of the time, I just sit in front of a screen, clicking through menus, trying to break things on purpose. Then I file a report, grab coffee, and do it all again. But a few nights ago, I got something different. It started with an email. No subject line, no sender name. Just one sentence in the body. Don't record, don't share, just play. There was a download link to a zipped folder. The file name was Malice Build V0.91. No company logo, no instructions, nothing. At first I thought it was a prank, but curiosity got the better of me. I ran a scan, nothing flagged, so I installed it. The game launched instantly. No splash screen, no title, no loading bar, just darkness. Then I saw a flickering hallway. Low-resolution textures, no HUD, no controls on screen. It looked like one of those slow-burn indie horror games. I moved forward. The walls were old and stained. The lights buzzed overhead. There were no footsteps, no music, just a soft static in the background, like an old TV left on. A message appeared on the wall in red, glowing letters. "You're being watched," I smirked. Okay. Creepy text. Classic move. I kept walking down the hallway. It looped, again and again. But on the fourth loop, something changed. One of the picture frames on the wall now showed a room. My room. Not something like it. It was my apartment. Same crooked bookshelf. Same coffee mug on the table. Even the hoodie I'd tossed on the chair 5 minutes earlier. Same exact spot. I froze. Checked if my webcam was on. It wasn't. I opened my webcam settings. Everything was disabled. I even covered the lens just in case. Then the screen flickered. A message popped up in the middle. "Is this your home?" There were two choices. Yes, and yes. I clicked one. The hallway lights flickered. Then, the lights in my apartment flickered. 3 quick blinks, just like in the game. That's when I stopped smiling. I pressed escape. Nothing happened. Alt plus F4. Still nothing. I opened Task Manager. The game wasn't even listed, but it was still running, right there in front of me. Then the screen turned black. Not just the game. My entire PC shut off. No fan noise, no beeping, just total silence. I sat there for a minute, staring at my reflection in the monitor. Eventually, I went to bed. Told myself it was a fluke. Maybe the game had a shutdown script. Maybe I was just tired. I didn't sleep well. Every creak in the walls sounded louder than usual. But nothing else happened. Until 3:08 a.m. That's when my monitor turned back on, by itself. The PC booted up, but it didn't go to Windows. It went straight back into the game. Same hallway, same static hum. But the message on the wall had changed. Now it said, "You shouldn't have stopped." And then I noticed something in the corner of my eye. The little white light on my webcam. It was on ... I woke up feeling exhausted, like I hadn't slept in days. The game was still open on my screen. No matter what I did, clicking, trying to force quit, restarting, it refused to close. It was like the game had taken control. I thought maybe it was some kind of malware, so I searched online for Malice Build V0.91. Nothing. No mentions anywhere. No forums, no reviews, no warnings. That made me nervous. If it wasn't on the internet, what was I dealing with? Then things started getting worse. My phone screen flickered randomly. My smart lights blinked in strange patterns. Once, my keyboard started typing on its own, spelling out, "Keep playing." I unplugged everything. No Wi-Fi, no devices, but the game stayed. The atmosphere in my apartment shifted. Cold spots, like icy breath on my neck. Soft whispers when no one was there. One night, I heard footsteps behind me. I whipped around. Empty room. No one. Then I looked back at the game. The hallway was gone. Now I was inside a room. But it wasn't just any room. It was my bedroom. Every detail exactly the same. The posters on the walls, the messy bed, even my laptop on the desk. And inside the game, I saw my laptop screen, showing the same game running again. I reached toward the screen inside the game. Suddenly, my real laptop keyboard started clicking, like invisible fingers typing. I slammed my laptop shut. But then, the webcam light stayed on. My heart thundered in my chest. I tried to scream. No sound came out. Then the game flashed a message in shaky, dripping red letters. "Let me in!" Suddenly, the screen went black. For a split second, I thought it was over. Then my phone buzzed. A new message. From an unknown number. It read, "I'm already inside." I dropped the phone. The lights cut out. Total darkness. I sat frozen, waiting for anything to happen. When the lights returned, the game was gone. But something wasn't right. There was a shadow in the corner of my room. It wasn't human. But it watched me like a predator waiting to strike. And then, my computer started booting up by itself. The desktop showed one file, a video. I hesitated, then clicked play. The screen filled with footage, my apartment. But the camera angle was impossible. It wasn't from any security cam I had. The camera was inside my closet.
Don't blink. Every second you watch, every word you type, they're closer. Like or comment. It's your only defense. Keep watching. Don't look away.
This happened just a few months ago. I was pulling a late shift and didn't feel like cooking when I got home, so I ordered from a local Thai place through DoorDash. Same thing I always get. Pad C, UW, and Thai iced tea. Nothing unusual, at least not at first. The app said my food would arrive in 35 minutes, and I zoned out watching some true crime on YouTube. About 20 minutes later, I got a notification. Your dasher is approaching. I glanced outside, no car. But a few seconds later, there was a knock. Not the doorbell, just a slow, deliberate knock. 3 times. I opened the door. A man was standing there, maybe late 40s, wearing a dark hoodie. He didn't have the usual DoorDash bag or even a phone out. Just held a brown paper bag toward me. "Order for Mark?" he asked. That's my name. I reached out and took it. "Thanks." He didn't smile, didn't say anything else. Just turned and walked back down my driveway. I watched him get into an old sedan, mid-2000s, scratched paint, and drive off without headlights. Kinda weird, but whatever. I brought the food inside. It smelled fine, warm, exactly what I ordered. But when I opened the receipt stapled to the bag, my stomach twisted a little. There was no delivery address listed, just a single handwritten line in red ink. "Sorry for the delay." Again, kinda weird. But I was tired, hungry, and I ate it anyway. The next day around lunch, I went to reorder from the same place. That's when things got strange. The Thai restaurant was gone from DoorDash. Not just closed, gone, like it had never existed. So, I Googled it. There were old Yelp reviews, but when I clicked the address, it said, "permanently closed." Reason: fire damage. The article was from nearly a year ago. The building had burned down in an electrical fire. Total loss. No one hurt, but the place was gone. I sat there staring at the screen. How the hell had I ordered from it last night? I tried to contact DoorDash. The order didn't show in my history. No charge on my card. No record at all. I checked my trash. The receipt was still there, but the red ink had smeared into a blotch, like it had been soaked, even though it hadn't touched anything wet. Now I was really unsettled. So I did something I probably shouldn't have. I drove to the address. It was about 15 minutes away. When I got there, I slowed down. The lot was still fenced off. The building was just a blackened skeleton of what used to be a restaurant. Burned wood, charred metal. But there was something else. Parked by the fence, partially hidden behind a bush, was that same old sedan. Same scratches, same cracked taillight. I didn't get out of my car. I just stared. Then I saw movement in the driver's seat. A face. The man from last night. He didn't look at me. Not directly, just stared forward, hands gripping the wheel, waiting. I left, fast. But that night, I kept thinking about that handwritten note. Sorry for the delay. Almost like the order had been placed a long time ago. And last night, he had finally delivered it. That night, I barely slept. Every sound outside made me jump. I kept checking the window, half expecting that same scratched-up sedan to be idling across the street. But it never showed, not that night. The next morning, I made a decision. Maybe a dumb one, but I felt like I needed answers. I went to the county clerk's office during my lunch break and asked if they had any records about the fire at the Thai restaurant. I said I was doing a school project. The clerk, an older guy with thick glasses, found the file quickly. Fire started in the kitchen, he said. No signs of arson, but there's something weird. He pointed to the last page. According to the report, a man had died inside during the fire. That didn't match the news article I read. That article said no one was hurt. I asked for the man's name. Martin Hale. Not my name, but weirdly close. Mark Martin. I asked for a copy of the report. He hesitated, then made one for me. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I pulled the receipt out of the trash again, looked at the handwriting. It looked shaky, like someone had written it with burned fingers. I started Googling Martin Hale, and after a while, I found a blurry photo from a community fundraiser back in 2019. It was him, the guy who brought my food, same blank face, same dark hoodie. But here's the part that really messed with me. The caption under the photo said, Martin Hale, co-owner of Bangkok Garden, passed away in a fire in late 2022. The man who delivered my food had been dead for nearly a year. After that, I stopped ordering delivery. For a while, I even stopped eating out. But then, about 3 weeks later, I came home from work to find a small white paper bag sitting at my door. No note, no knock, no app notification. Inside was a plastic container, still warm, with pad CU, and on top, a red ink note. One last delivery, thank you, I threw it away. Whole thing, didn't even open the lid. But that night, I had a dream. In it, I was walking into a restaurant, a version of the Thai place, but intact, clean, busy, except everything felt wrong. The people weren't speaking, they just stared at me. And behind the counter stood Martin. He smiled. Your order's ready, he said. I turned to leave, but the door behind me was gone. Just a blank wall. I woke up drenched in sweat, my room freezing cold, even though it was the middle of summer. And when I got up to splash water on my face, I found another receipt stuck to my bathroom mirror. Same red ink. You're part of the route now. That was 2 weeks ago. Since then, nothing's happened. No more deliveries, no strange knocks, no dreams. But sometimes, when I'm driving alone at night, my GPS glitches, just for a second. The screen goes black, and then a new destination appears, unprompted. Bangkok Garden. And worse, the estimated arrival time always reads, now.
They're listening right now to your breath, to your silence. Leave a comment, or they'll think you're hiding.
I've never been the paranoid type. I don't double-check locks. I fall asleep with the lights off. And I've walked home in the dark more times than I can count. But this got to me. It started 2 weeks ago, on a rainy Tuesday morning. I was heading out to work. The sky was a dull gray. The streets were slick with drizzle, and everything smelled like wet concrete. As I approached my car, something caught my eye. A small piece of paper tucked neatly under the windshield wiper. At first, I thought it was a flyer, or maybe a ticket. But when I picked it up, the paper was damp and soft, and someone had written on it with what looked like a black Sharpie. 3 words. I saw you. That's it. No name, no explanation, no contact info. Just, I saw you. I looked around the parking lot. Nothing. A couple of people heading to work, a dog walker down the street. The usual quiet suburban nothingness. I laughed it off. Probably some dumb joke. Kids, maybe. I threw the note in my glove compartment and didn't think about it again. Not seriously, anyway. The next morning, there was another one. This time, don't act like you forgot. I stood there longer, heart beating just a little too fast. My first instinct was to think someone got the wrong car. But my license plate was right, my street, my usual spot. No mistake. I checked the car. No scratches, no broken windows. Everything seemed normal. I didn't tell anyone. It felt too weird, too specific. By day 4, the notes were waiting for me every single morning. You looked right at me. You smiled. You lied. I stopped sleeping well. I parked 2 blocks away one night just to see if it would stop. It didn't. The note was there. Same handwriting, same black ink. You can't run from this. I started waking up early, like 4:30 a.m., and watching from the living room window just to catch whoever was doing it. But every time I'd go out, the street would be empty, dead silent. The note would already be there, waiting. By the end of the week, I finally cracked. I installed a small dash cam facing out through the windshield. Motion activated, night vision, the whole deal. I figured if someone's sneaking up to my car, I'd catch them in the act. The next morning, the note was there. Smile for the camera. And when I checked the footage, there was no one. Not a single frame. Just hours of empty street and still shadows. Until one moment, at exactly 3:46 a.m., the screen glitched, just for a second. A single frame, barely a blip. But when I paused and zoomed in, there was a face, pressed against the glass. I must have stared at that frozen frame for 5 full minutes. The face was blurry, distorted by the glass and the glitch. But it was definitely human. Or almost. Pale skin, wide eyes, no eyebrows, no expression, just watching. I showed it to a friend later that day. He said it looked like a Halloween mask, that I was probably being pranked. But he didn't see the eyes. They weren't blank. They were focused. Like whoever it was Knew I was watching back. I started leaving the car unlocked. I wanted them to take it, steal it, trash it, anything. I just wanted the notes to stop. They didn't. You're pretending again. I was in the passenger seat. You looked away. I stopped going to work, stopped answering calls. I barely ate. Just sat by the window all night, watching, waiting. I even tried leaving my phone on the dash, recording video. The next morning, it was still recording. Nothing but silence. Except, at 3:46 a.m., the exact same time, another glitch. 1 second of static. Then, just barely, a whisper. So faint I had to crank the volume all the way up. Say it. That was it. Say what? By now, my nerves were shot. I started questioning everything. My memories, my past few weeks, even older stuff. I thought about therapy, or the cops. But what was I supposed to tell them? Hi, someone's leaving creepy notes and also possibly teleporting. Then came the final note. Last night. It wasn't under the wiper, it was inside, laid neatly on the driver's seat. No sign of forced entry. 6 words written in bold, jagged strokes. You left me in the trunk. I felt sick. My legs went numb. Because I knew exactly what it meant. Not last week, not this year, 10 years ago. Before I moved here, before I changed my name. A night I buried so deep I stopped believing it even happened. One road, one fight, one mistake, and one decision I never told anyone about. Now, whoever or whatever, this is, they remember. And they want me to open the trunk.
You think this is just a story? It's not. It really happened. It all started with something small. One sound, one glance, and I was never alone again. Subscribe if you crave real horror, and like the video while you still can.
I've had sleep paralysis before, maybe 3 or 4 times in my life. It's terrifying, sure, but I always knew what it was. A trick of the brain, a glitch during REM sleep. Nothing supernatural. But this time, something was different. It started after I moved into my new apartment. Small, cheap, and quiet. Too quiet. My bedroom had no windows. Just one door and this weird dark spot on the ceiling where the paint peeled like skin. The first night felt heavy. The air was thick. I chalked it up to stress. New job, new place. I crashed into bed by midnight, exhausted. Then I woke up, or I thought I did. I was lying on my back, staring up at the ceiling. My body wouldn't move, not even a twitch. My chest felt crushed, like something massive sat on it. Classic sleep paralysis, I told myself. But then the silence broke. A faint click echoed from the corner of the room, like fingernails tapping on the wall. Tap, tap, tap. I couldn't turn my head, but I felt it watching me. There was someone, or something, standing just outside my line of sight. Then I heard breathing, not mine. Wet, raspy, uneven. I tried to scream, nothing came out. My throat was frozen shut. Then it moved. I couldn't see it, but I heard the steps, slow, dragging, inching toward my bed. 1, 2, 3. Then it leaned down next to my ear and whispered something that made my blood turn to ice. You're not dreaming. My vision flickered. A shadow darker than the rest of the room crawled over me like smoke. And then I woke up, gasping, soaked in sweat. The ceiling looked normal again. It was over. At least I thought it was. But when I turned on the light, there were fingerprints on the wall next to my bed. Long, black, burned into the paint. I didn't sleep the next night. I scrubbed the wall, but the marks stayed, like scorch marks, charred fingerprints. I even took a picture. Thought I could send it to someone. But when I checked my phone later, the photo was gone, replaced by a black screen, just black, with a faint red dot near the bottom. I deleted it. The third night, I took sleeping pills. Just wanted rest. Just wanted to forget. At 3:17 a.m., I woke up again. Same thing. Frozen. Heavy. My eyes locked on the ceiling. But this time, I could see it. The peeling patch above me had opened, like torn skin, and something looked down at me from inside the dark. Eyes. Hollow. Glossy. Blinking. Then the voice came back. Closer. Clearer. You brought me here. I tried to move. I screamed inside my head. Wake up. Wake up. But nothing worked. I felt my blanket shift. My chest sank. And then, a hand, cold and wet, slid across my throat. Not choking, just touching, testing. It leaned closer. You're awake now. Good. Suddenly I could move again. I gasped, shot up in bed, reached for the lamp. Light flooded the room. Nothing. But this time it wasn't over. Because in the corner of my room, my reflection stared back from the full-length mirror. Except I don't own a mirror. And the person staring back at me wasn't blinking.